Hello everyone. Today is January 31st, 2019, and welcome to another JR Research presentation. My name is Dylan Mixicek, and I am a research analyst here in the Office of Innovation, Alignment, and Accountability, or OIAA, in DCYF, and today I will be talking about the impact of risk score changes on recidivism among juvenile rehabilitation residents in Washington State. So this is the first change score analysis we have conducted internally in JR, and we would like to continue this type of analysis. So I will start with a little introduction to change score analysis and the methodology and how we might be able to use it within JR, and then move into the specific study presented here. In order to begin talking about change scores, it's important to start with an understanding of risk assessments and risk scores. So risk assessments are widely used in JR. There are a couple of examples on the screen, but our ability to understand and utilize this information is somewhat limited. We use them to determine program or service eligibility and community placement, among other things, and we do this by assigning them a score. But what do these scores really mean? So risk scores allow us to measure or quantify the amount of risk an individual has based on a set of factors. While we are looking specifically at the risk of recidivism in this study, or a new adjudication within 18 months of release from JR, the risk you are measuring will be related to a specific outcome. In other words, based on a set of factors, you are looking at the likelihood or probability of a specific outcome occurring. So although we could analyze these scores at the time the assessment was administered, whether it was at intake, at release, or in parole, studying the change in risk scores allow us to ask slightly different questions. Because JR youth are under close supervision, we can infer that changes in risk scores are impacted by the quality of the treatment and services they receive while in JR. Therefore, rather than asking, is the final score related to an outcome, we can begin asking questions about which programs and services impact these change scores the most, and what impact that has on the risk of recidivism. So the current study attempts to lay the foundation for this type of analysis by asking, are changes in IDA risk domain scores related to recidivism? And if so, which domains are the most predictive? We did this by looking at a sample of youth released in 2014 with 2 or more IDA assessments. Data was pulled from the automated client tracking system, and logistic regression was used to study the relationship between scores and recidivism. Here's a little bit more of the methodology. We only used dynamic domain scores, as static scores shouldn't change much over time. Percent of max and percent change were calculated using the formulas listed here. And while it can be a little bit confusing, as we look at the figure on the next slide, keep in mind that negative change scores represent a reduced risk, and positive change scores represent an increased risk. So here's the primary figure from the research brief, and this figure illustrates the relationship between percent change on the horizontal axis and the probability of recidivism on the vertical axis. Only the domains that were significantly related to recidivism are presented here, which means school, living arrangements, attitudes, skills, and total risk. As we move to the left on the horizontal axis, we are looking at reductions in risk, and as we move to the right on the horizontal axis, we are looking at increased risk of recidivism. 0 indicates no change or baseline. So taking a look at the lines in the graph, we can see that as you reduce the risk, the probability of recidivism is also reduced. The slope of the line is representative of the strength of the relationship, so domains with steeper lines have a stronger relationship to recidivism. For example, if we look at a youth who reduced their total IDA risk score, that dark blue line on the top there, by 50% while they were in JR, we would expect them to recidivate about 39% of the time. On the other hand, if a youth increased their risk score by 25% while in JR, we would expect them to recidivate approximately 90% of the time. And that we got from just looking at that top dark blue line and looking at the percent change on the horizontal axis. So with that data in mind, this analysis led us to one recommendation for the IDA assessment process, as well as a couple of directions for future research. First, the study found that 3 of 10 domains are significantly related to recidivism, Additionally, the study found that a 10% reduction in total risk score corresponds to about a 15% reduction in recidivism. This highlights the importance of understanding how these domains impact recidivism so that we as an agency can focus on the most influential domains. The other outcome of this study was that it highlighted the need for routine reassessment. Risk assessment is a key feature of juvenile rehabilitation and allows for objective decisions to be made regarding a youth's time in JR and should be done on a regular basis. Counter to JR policy, in 2017, 18% of the youth only received an assessment at intake and not at a release. Routine assessment will provide us the ability to continue to study this topic and will also provide JR with a better idea of how the services we provide impact the youth we serve. Creating an automated notification system so that staff responsible for administering the IDA are notified when a youth is approaching the release date should help facilitate this process. So that's all we have for you today. This was a short research brief, but if you have any questions regarding this study or other studies we are working on, feel free to contact me at the email below. Thanks for listening and have a wonderful day.